and welcome to Jen and Dan's Natural Healing with Plants. This is the go-to podcast for holistic health seekers looking to harness the power of nature for healing and wellness. I'm Jen, a dedicated health educator, coach, master herbalist, and culinary coach, whole food plant-based. And I'm joined by Dan, an exercise specialist and master herbalist, also whole food plant-based. And together we look at the world of natural healing. We both went to the School of Natural Healing. We're both master herbalists. And we love to bring you a wealth of knowledge and practical advice on natural healing. We draw from both traditional wisdom and modern science to help you achieve optimal health and vitality. So hello, everyone. Today we are looking at the world of superfoods and superfood powders. These terms have become very popular lately. All of my clients want to know, what powder should I buy? What about this superfood or that superfood? What does a superfood mean? And more importantly, how do these fit into a natural healing lifestyle?
Well, superfoods are often described as nutrient-rich foods, and they're considered to be especially beneficial for your health and well-being. They can include things like berries, kale, quinoa, and even exotic things like spirulina. But there's a lot of hype around these foods, and it's essential to examine them critically.
Right. We definitely need to look into them. So what sparked my idea of discussing this topic today was I was making my chia pudding, which chia could be considered a superfood, with my flax seeds. And for me, that's normal. But then I went to go grab some pomegranate powder because I like to put pomegranate powder in there. That helps with heart health. That helps to create nitric oxide, which helps with blood flow. And I started thinking, A, is this necessary? B, how processed is a pomegranate powder? What nutrients are actually in here? How effective is a powder? And is it something that should be added? And then I'm having it with my mushroom coffee. And so here's another powder that I'm putting in here. And at the same time, yesterday, so I guess it was in the back of my head, I listened to a podcast with Dr. Christopher Hobbs, who Daniel and I both had the privilege of not only learning from him online, but also learning from him in person, which was amazing. And he was talking about mushroom powders and how to select high quality mushroom powders, or better yet, making your own mushroom powder. And so that's also a superfood. And another thing is sometimes we think of these superfoods like as a replacement. I know 10 years ago, I had people trying to sell me this green powder. And all you had to do is stir it into your water and drink it, and you got all the fruits and vegetables you need for the day. And I could not convince them that no, drinking this drink is not the same as eating all the fruits and vegetables that I need in a day. And so that's why I wanted to bring this topic to the table. And I think that there's good and bad in this. Maybe I shouldn't use good and bad as the terms, but there are some reasons why you would want some, why you wouldn't want some, and definitely some ways to look at it differently. I would not consider a powder a whole food when we talk about whole foods. So what are your thoughts and what do you think about this, Dan?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that rely on meal replacement powders and things like that to replace their whole foods. And see, but there's a reason what they call these things replacements. And you're right, Jen. In this market with all these supplements, it's not a heavily regulated industry, and some of these powders they may not have. I mean, how do we know what's in there? How do we know what the nutrition is? I mean, you could pick up an apple and know that it's going to have some good nutrition because it's a whole food. But when you have a powder,
Right.
and we have to think about, are there heavy metals in some of these things? Are there
Mm-hmm.
chemicals, toxins? Some have toxins in them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. How was it sourced? Where was it sourced? How was it processed? How did it get to a powder? Because I could heat something really fast, dry it out, heat it really fast, grind it in my grinder, and then create a powder. But when I heat it really fast, I'm destroying all the nutrients in it. And so how are these processed? A. And B, like you said, where was it processed? What was the quality of the ingredient before they turned it into a powder? I have a client this week who we looked at labs, and labs showed this, that, and the other, and we haven't even had time to discuss it yet. And then the person contacts me and says, I need to get this algae, and I want it in capsules. Which brand do you recommend? And I said, well, I'm not familiar with any capsules for that algae you're looking for. Well, I know it's going to solve all my issues. Thought, really?
Yes, I think it's dangerous when we start looking at these things as magical. And of course, some of the marketers tell you they're magical,
Right.
but this isn't true. I mean, if you're trying to get better, you're not going to do it eating just powders. And
Right.
I mean, you have to eat real foods. That's why me and Jennifer make it specifically. We say whole food, plant-based, which means simply whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. So, and
Right.
look, and you, I mean, you need to do your due diligence. I'm not against some of these things. We take herbs all the time, both of us, but we
Right.
know we get quality, products because we know the manufacturers, we do our research, and we know what we're getting is good. But there's so many brands out there that have been caught just putting fillers into some of these capsules, and it's not even,
Right.
it doesn't even have what's supposed to have in it. So
Right.
you have to be a smart consumer, let's say that.
Yes. Yes. Even Dr. Hobbs on this podcast yesterday um, said, when you're looking at mushrooms, sometimes you need to even contact the manufacturer if it doesn't say what the powders are processed from, because they grow a lot of them on like rice, and when they harvest it to grind it all up, they harvest the whole block. And so if the mushroom hasn't had time to consume all of the rice, then your product is going to be mostly rice. It's not, what happens is the mushroom breaks it all down, that transforms it. But if you harvest it without letting it take its time, then you're going to end up with a product with a little mushroom and a lot of rice. And
Yeah.
so it's something that we need to look at. And some people are sensitive to rice, and so maybe you're thinking you're buying mushrooms and you don't realize that you're actually buying rice.
And failed to mention too, the budget. Some of these products are really, really expensive. Looking at $60, $80 for some of these things.
Mhm.
You could take that same money and go buy a decent amount of produce with that.
Right.
So
Right.
especially if you're not getting, we don't know. I mean, it's a hustle bustle world. And some of these corporations are probably bending the rules a little bit to make more products. So it's probably not as nutritious as it should be. And look, we can't fall for the trap that some powder is going to replace your fruits and vegetables.
Mm-mm.
That is a imaginary fairy tale.
Right. And that makes me think of like when you're buying sea vegetables, especially if you buy them in a powdered form, or the algae, which is another sea product. They are so fabulous at detoxing radioactive materials and other toxins, which means they absorb them as well. And so if you're buying those and not redoing your research, you may be buying a product that's really high in harmful substances. They're just really highly contaminated. And so I think that's another thing, especially when you're buying anything, a sea vegetable, spirulina, chlorella, any of those, you want to make sure that they are very high quality. They've been tested for these other contaminants as well.
That's a really good point because the oceans are really contaminated these days. I think I found one spirulina that was actually grown in a land on the land of some lake they had to get away from the oceans. So
Mhm.
like we're saying again, do your research because you don't want to take something that's going to expose you to radiation and mercury. Because another thing about natural healing, we teach you have to get these things out of your body for your body to be able to heal. So we don't want to put them back in.
Right.
So, but I mean, right? I guess we've talked about a lot of the cons of these superfoods.
Mhm.
But what are some of the pros we could talk about with these things?
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm making my chia pudding. Chia is considered a superfood. Now, I do use the whole chia seeds. I do plump them up before I use them. So if you're not familiar with chia seeds, they absorb a lot, 2/3 their weight in water. I can't remember. They expand 3 times. And so if you add like 3 tablespoons per tablespoon, that kind of thing. So I usually will do a half a cup or 3/4 of a cup of water or dairy-free milk. And I'll put in 2 tablespoons of chia seeds and a tablespoon of flax seeds. Those are both considered superfoods, but they are whole seeds. And so that's a whole plant food, right? But then I'll add in like pomegranate powder. I'll add a scoop of pomegranate powder because I love it. It's delicious, but it also helps, like I said, with nitric oxide and blood flow. And I have a high quality pomegranate powder that I like. It adds delicious flavor and lots of nutrients. And then sometimes I'll add a spirulina, a scoop of spirulina, but I have a safe source. Sometimes it'll be maybe some, it depends on what color I want it to be sometimes. But maybe butterfly pea powder, the beautiful blue, or I can make it turn purple depending on what I add with it. And then I like to drink my mushroom coffee because mushrooms are definitely a superfood. Mushrooms have so much power in them. Excuse me. And I even like to make my own mushroom powder, which isn't that difficult to do if you know how to do it. It's time consuming, as in hands-free time, but it does take a long time to do. And so I do love and trust superfoods, powders in my dishes. Now, when it comes to superfoods, broccoli is a superfood. Broccoli sprouts are considered a superfood. Pomegranates are considered superfood. Really, superfoods thrown around, you know, brightly colored fruits and vegetables are all superfoods. They're all healing to the body. And whenever you put anything in your mouth or in your skin or you breathe it, you have to think about it. Every single thing is either nourishing your cells or destroying your cells. So what you're putting in your body, what is that doing to you? So when you pick up a powder, decide you want to buy a powder or choose a powder or a superfood, make sure you're eating it with other things. We don't want to just rely on superfoods. But B, make sure it's a high quality. Make sure it is something that is going to bring something good to your body, especially when we're talking about natural healing. For instance, if I were to eat some contaminated seaweed, so I do love seaweed. Most of you know I have a history of autoimmune thyroid. I had Graves. I did have radiation before I discovered natural healing, and that was 11 years ago, right? And so I'm thriving now. You know, my antibodies are awesome, but I do make sure that I get iodine, not an iodized salt, but through seaweed, eating sea vegetables, using sea algae. And I have genetics where I don't process omega-3s very well. So I do honestly take a fish oil capsule just because I've done the genetic history. If I did not have those genes, I would take an algae oil. But the seaweeds and the spirulina, they all provide iodine, which my body needs. And so I could also use those as powders, or I could eat the sea vegetable. So I can't remember where I was going with this, but those are definitely have a place in my lifestyle. I try not to use powders. I try to use whole foods as much as I can, like a seaweed snack or a nori for the iodine. Making sure I'm eating brightly colored fruits and vegetables. All of those colors provide different chemicals that are healing to the body. If I were to eat seaweed that was contaminated, that's where we were, then I'm taking in some nutrients that my body loves. The cells love all these minerals, but those toxins are still going to have to be handled. And so my body is going to pause doing whatever it needs to do to heal, recover, to remove whatever else is going on in my body. When we eat and digest, we create free radicals. My body's going to be focusing on that heavy metal or that chemical that I just put into my mouth by eating French fries. Those heated oils, those trans fats. My body's dealing with those trans fats. It's not dealing with nutrients that are in the potato. It's got to worry about those trans fats, which is going to create more damage in my body. Even if I eat it with broccoli, the broccoli is healing, but those French fries are damaging. And so the same thing with superfoods. Whenever you eat a superfood, it may counteract a little bit of the bad stuff you're eating, but if you're not changing your other foods, you're really not. You're just putting a Band-Aid on something. So that's why, like my client who said this algae is what all she needs to help all of her problems. That's not going to help all your problems.
Yeah, we live in the world where, it's a pill for every ill. So some people look at, well, natural healing must have things like that too. But, and look, I've seen herbs and things work wonders with people. But if you want to have a true longevity and health, you have to change your diet. You just have to. You have to eat.
Mhm.
Jennifer's talked about the colors. You have to get your whole foods and add your superfoods with them if you want to. But you can get really healthy if you just do whole food plant based without any superfoods. If you don't have the budget for them.
You don't need any super. They're so expensive. They're
Oh God,
so
no.
expensive, and you don't need any of them. You want to get the benefits of that powder, that 5 a day drink. Get out your blender and make a green smoothie.
Yep.
Put some different colors in there, blend it all up, and drink it. Your body's going to absorb that nice and easily if it's blended or juiced. Sometimes with juicing, blood sugar can spike. We have to be careful. It depends on what you're juicing. But with blending it up, blend it up, adding lots of greens for lots of minerals, that it's a superfood right there. Whole
Oh
food.
yeah.
Yeah.
So don't feel like, oh, I don't have the budget to get well. Superfoods
Yeah.
are definitely a great addition, but if you just have money for produce, get the produce.
Right. Right. Yeah. And if you're worried about nutrition, make sure you're changing more than just adding the powders. Now, if you, no, I know a lot of people like, I have a family member who works really, 10-hour days. It's an hour drive each way. So that's half a day, 12 hours plus, especially if you have to stop for gas and things like that. And so time is definitely an issue. They have to take, their lunch to work and figuring out, how do you eat breakfast and lunch and dinner when you are gone 12 hours. And so those days, maybe taking a greens powder, a shake mix that you can just mix in water because maybe there's not refrigerator space, stuff like that. And having, so that may be a good idea if you're in a situation like that. Maybe you're traveling. When I traveled to Europe, I took some superfood powders with me. I took mushroom powder. I took a protein powder, stuff that was easy to pack on the plane and take. And then I knew wherever I was, I could have something that at least had some protein and some minerals in it while I'm trying to find other food. Wherever you travel, you can go into a grocery store and grab some fruit. So I would I took some chia seeds. So I would make my little chia pudding, and I could buy some apples and have apple and chia pudding every day and had some nuts. So there you go. And if I had to eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then I would have to eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But luckily, I was able to find places that had some greens and salads and veggies, and so it's not that difficult. So there is a place for superfoods. I don't think we need to worry about having the newest superfood. I know with like Dr. Greger talks about it's not goji berries. What's the berry? It's not acai berry. Maybe it is goji berries.
Probably.
Indian gooseberry.
Yeah, Indian, yeah.
What is it called?
AMLA.
AMLA. So he talks about AMLA and the wonderful benefits of AMLA. And so I remember when I first read How Not to Die, I immediately started looking for AMLA, which was expensive. And I finally got it. It tastes terrible. And why? Why did I put so much time and energy into finding and money into finding this AMLA when there are other things I can do too and get nutritional benefits? I don't need to add that superfood. Yes, I can. I could add it to a smoothie occasionally, but that's not something, it's not going to fix any problems. You've got to make other changes as well.
Yeah, there's no quick fixes. We have to get that out of our heads. We have to do the work. You have to do the whole food. You have to get the sleep. You have to do your exercise. You have to work on your emotions. We were talking about that this morning. Your
Yeah.
emotions, they control your health to such a huge extent.
Yes.
You have to get your emotion. And if you need therapy, do it.
Get the therapy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. One of our teachers, Dr. Schultz, said, you have to get the mind right. Right. He reminded us that emotions are stored in our body. That shoulder pain, that hip pain, that kidney pain, that stomach pain, it could all be emotional. It may not be something physical. And so we have to work on the emotions. For me this week, I really, really learned. I got really stressed, with overworkloaded, and all of a sudden my blood sugar spiked. I do wear a CGM every now and then. I just happen to be wearing one. I put that on and I'm working, and my sugar spiked 100 points. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even eat anything but a green salad. And then I finally got it normal. My daughter made chocolate chip cookies, I ate 2 chocolate chip cookies. My blood sugar only went up 20 points. Now, our chocolate chip cookies are not store-bought chocolate chip cookies. They are gluten-free. They are vegan. She probably made them with almond flour or oats. I'm not telling anyone to eat those, but it's amazing how my blood could spike 100 points because I got stressed out, but with cookies, it didn't spike. And so that just goes to tell you how much our mind, our brain does to our body. We have to chill out.
Yep.
That is just as important as the food. So don't hone in on the superfoods unless you do have the time and the money to do your research and find them. They can be added in. Add them into other lifestyle changes. Focus on all the things. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Take one change. What's one thing you can do today to make your health one step better? Yep, hone in. We want whole food, plant-based, real whole foods. Buy your, like our grocery list is all in the produce department. You know, we might buy some dried foods, rice, oats, and dried beans, but everything else is in the produce department. Buy as much whole food as you can. Move your body. Move your body. Walking, parking far from the door. If you're physically able, get out and move. If you're not physically able, move your arms. Move your arms, move your legs, get the lymph flowing. Our bodies are made to move. We have systems in our body that only move when we move, and make sure that you're focusing on good quality sleep and taking care of you. So it's a whole system. It's not just the food. The superfood can't just be the answer. You have to look at the whole body. So if you have a superfood that you love and you'd like for us to examine, let us know. If you don't agree with us today, we want to know that too. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends. Please subscribe to our channel. And we love to hear from our fans. So thank you for joining us today. And we will see you next week.